Okay, so today we are going to do a bit of an academic exercise in the Cessna Skymaster in Microsoft Flight Simulator. We have got the simulator running. We've got an aircraft on the ground at Oxford Airport, or Kidlington Airport as it's actually known, but we'll excuse that one. So we're at Oxford Airport. It's absolutely hammering down with rain, and I've reduced the visibility enormously, and we're going to try and fly a circuit with zero visibility, just using the ILS and the basic instruments at our disposal. So we've got this instrument, the nav instrument, which we will be using heavily during the flight. Some of the rendering is a bit odd in the rain here. Obviously there's a bit of a mistake in the configuration of the scenery, but we're going to ignore that. Okay, so let's get the aircraft up and running. So what do we do with the Skymaster to get it running? We switch the batteries on, the alternators, the pitot heat, nav, strobe and beacon lights. I'm not doing this very accurately, we're just going to get the airplane up and running basically. So that was the avionics switch we just switched on. The levers for the fuel are good to go, so we push the engine mixtures to rich, and then we should be able to just start the engines. Okay, that's the rear engine, and that's the front engine. Okay, so purposely I am going to leave this without showing the map display, so we don't have it for our own benefit. But we are going to go and have a quick look at the map. You can see where we are at Kidlington. We're going to take off on runway 19. Fly the circuit, come back in runway 19. Okay, so to do this we are going to use ILS, so 108.35, 191 degrees. So let's just check that again, 108.35. So on the system over here we're going to dial in 108.35. we're going to transfer it and make it the active frequency straight away. We're also going to make sure this is on VLOC mode. So if we go show any messages, there's no messages to speak of. We're going to leave this on the menu screen on purpose, and we're going to change this course to reflect the direction of the runway, which was 19, wasn't it? So we're going to spin this around to 190 degrees. It was about 191, so that's close enough. So yeah, 180, 191. Okay, so let's taxi out to the runway. Let's get an idea of where we are before we start. So we're going to taxi out to runway 19, so we're going to have to taxi along runway 29, then round the corner to 19. Just one more final look before we do this. So we're going to turn immediately left. Okay. So flaps to takeoff position, parking brakes off, and we're rolling in the rain. So you can see the visibility is going to be incredibly poor, but we're doing this on purpose. As I said, this is very much an academic exercise to teach ourselves how to fly with no visibility. I'm just going to check the volume levels while we're doing this, so you can hear me over the engine. Yes, I think you can, which is good. I'm just going to turn my own volume down in my ears though, so I don't end up shouting. There we go. So we're just taxiing around the edge of the airfield to get to runway 29, then we go along 29, turn right into 19, backtrack, turn around, and we'll do our takeoff run. So we're just taxiing around towards the entrance onto runway 29, which we are just about to find. Okay, here comes the entrance onto runway 29. So this is Oxford Kidlington Airport, which is Echo Golf Tango Kilo EGTK. Okay, so this is runway 29 that we're wandering along at the moment, I believe. We should get to... We've just gone over the stopping point. The visibility really is horrendous, isn't it? So this is now runway 01 we're travelling along, but obviously we're going to go to the end and go to 19. So things to pay attention to on this flight are going to be the nav1 instrument here and the distance measuring equipment. So we're just going to go over to the edge of the runway, slow right down, turn the aircraft round. Okay, let's see how we get on then, shall we? So we're going to take off and we're going to fly 190 degrees on the compass. So before we do any of that, let's just make sure these are both accurate. I've pressed B and D, so we've both got the ground. So we can see we're at about 270 feet above sea level. So pulling back on the stick, we're airborne, and we can say goodbye to the ground for a while. So gear up. Flaps up. So now we are purely watching the direction on the compass to maintain, so we can zoom in down here because we're not going to be looking outside. Now notice we start to roll. We need to be careful of that. We're looking at vertical speed as well. We are being thrown all over the place. So we'll come up to about 1,000 feet. Could have really done without this weather, to be honest. So I'm cutting back to 50% throttle just to fly around the circuit. So up to 1,000 feet, we're flying around the circuit. We're going to start a left turn. So we're literally going to turn until we get this lined up on the marker to do a constant radius turn. We're turning round to 10 degrees, which was the reciprocal of our takeoff direction. We just keep an eye on the vertical speed and the altimeter as we do this. We're turning a bit steeply. Again, you can see the weather outside is horrendous, but that's on purpose. Okay, so we're now flying the reciprocal of the takeoff direction. So we'll just straighten up a little bit. We're now trying to concentrate on both the direction and the vertical speed. You can see the updrafts and downdrafts in the rain are horrendous, so you kind of become mindful not to chase them too much. So we're flying 10 degrees, if we can help it. We can move the marker here to put our direction marker on 10 degrees as well, just as a good visual reference. So we're climbing like crazy. We're coming up to 1,400 feet. We're getting far too high. Anyway, we're going to look at the distance measuring equipment here, because we're tuned into the ILS at Oxford. Yes, on 108.35. So we're going to wait until we're about 5 miles away before we turn around. So we're just concentrating on flying 10 degrees and that the vertical speed isn't moving around too much. But again, that's very much dependent on the weather. We're hitting these pockets of high and low pressure, which are causing the aeroplane to go up and down dramatically. Obviously, we can try and trim the plane as much as sensibly possible to stop that happening. Coming up for 2.5 miles away. We've just gone through. 3 miles. So still concentrating 10 degrees, watching the vertical speed, The weather seems to be stabilising out a little bit, which is good. I'm going to pull the engines right back, and as I do so we hit pressure, and you can see the colour of the cloud we're going through is changing, and that's influencing the vertical speed quite dramatically from time to time. So this isn't an exact science, this is just reacting to what's happening as it happens. Okay, so we're coming up to 5 miles, so I'm going to begin making that turn. We're just above 1,000 feet above the ground. Well, sorry, above sea level. Remember, the ground was about 250-ish feet. So we're going to start making that turn. Notice we are going quite steeply down where we've banked the plane over, so the nose is dipping, so I'm just correcting that with some backstick pressure to hold the vertical speed. So we're maintaining 1,000 feet. We're turning slowly towards the runway. Because we set the course on the CDI to the runway direction, then we know what direction the runway is relative to us. So we are off to the left of the centre line. So we're going to intercept on purpose. We're going to fly across the path of the runway, and we are below the glide slope at the moment. Yeah? Going to slow down. And we're going to get the gear down now. So we're flying happily along about 1,200 feet. Just dropping down to 1,000 feet. So we're waiting for this line to sweep in. And here it comes. So when it gets close to the middle, we will turn towards it. We are being thrown all over the place. Whoa. So we're now roughly in line with the runway. We're off to the left slightly. Yeah, which you can see here. So we're going to turn back towards that centre line and guide it towards the middle of the instrument, which will mean we are on the centre line. So I'm going to full flaps now and opening the engine a bit more. You can see now the glide slope is appearing. It's starting to sweep down, so we can begin chasing that as well. So we basically chase both towards the ground. So I'm going to look outside here, and we're a bit high. So we're just correcting that. We're being thrown all over the place. It's like being on a bucking bronco. Hoping once we get close to the ground it won't be quite as bad. That's interesting. There's a scenery aberration over there. I can see out of the corner of my eye. I'm trying not to look at it too much. We've gone low, so I'm raising the nose. Bit more throttle. There we go. We're back almost on target. We can see bits of ground appearing. We should hopefully see a runway sometime soon. We are over the runway. There it is. Yep, can see it. So we lost the track just towards the end there, but close enough to get us visible with the runway. And we're down. Okay, so there you go, a very, very low visibility and turbulent condition circuit of Oxford, and you can see I'm having trouble even holding the airplane on the runway. The weather is so violent. We're being blown all over the place. So raise the flaps and we'll just taxi in. So there you go. So I guess the takeaway from this is that it is possible to use the instruments to fly in zero visibility conditions, even when the aeroplane is pitching all over the place. Don't worry too much about being exactly on the track of the instruments. We knew we were in the ballpark all the way in. And then obviously as soon as we started to see shadows of the ground and the top of trees going past underneath, you know, we knew we were kind of getting close to the ground. Yeah, there's some really serious issues with this scenery, isn't there? It's got some missing shader parameters by the look of it. Because if we go and change the weather now and turn this back to normal, you'll see what it should look like. I'll have to send an email to the makers of the scenery and let them know. So obviously this is going to dry up as we taxi in. This is Oxford Airport, by the way. Okay, should we go and find somewhere to park? Just next to this big jet, in between these two. Okay, parking brakes on. Cut the mixtures to the engines to kill the engines. Ignition off. Batteries off. Pitot heat off. Lights off. And avionics off. We're good to go. Okay, so there we go. We survived a very, very difficult circuit with zero visibility, with terrible weather throwing us all over the place, just to show that it can be done. Okay, so I often practice this kind of thing just for an academic exercise, really, and kind of to keep your hand in with stick and rudder flying and basic instruments and kind of, you know, things where you're not really sure you're going to make it, but that's why we have a simulator. Because if we had crashed into the ground, we haven't hurt anybody, but we've got the experience. Okay, I'm going to leave it there, and I'll see you again soon.